Hey everybody, David the AI Guide here, and today we're going to talk about something a little different, and that is what AI is not, at least right now. So there's historic news from yesterday, and I want to talk about it in the context of AI because it teaches us an important lesson. So the historic news is that for the first time in history, NASA approved for commercial spaceflight a human-rated space vehicle. And this one was developed by SpaceX, but there's another one by Boeing right behind it. So before this, every single space vehicle carrying humans has been government owned and built. For the first time ever, a private company owns, built, and developed, with NASA, of course, owned, built, and developed this spacecraft, and that's the Crew Dragon. And it will launch on its first operational mission Saturday if the weather holds and there's no technical issues at the last minute. But this is where AI comes in this discussion. In order to certify the Crew Dragon for flight, NASA and SpaceX reviewed thousands and thousands of tests, which each had many thousands of data points within each of those tests. And they did all this with people, not AI. Why? Because AI isn't there yet. And we've talked about this before, but AI today is only good for a single narrow specific task. For example, reading CAT scans looking for cancer, or reading CAT scans looking for leaking blood. So these are very, very specific and narrow tasks. So if you have a general task like design, develop, and build a spacecraft, AI can't do that within the foreseeable future. And this is good news for humans, right? Because there's very certain things that we've talked about that will be automated by AI and replaced by AI and/or the convergence of AI and robotics. But many, many things will not for the foreseeable future. And I dare say that designing, developing, building, and certifying a spacecraft is one of those. That requires human beings. In the very last video, talking about lawyers, we talked about certain things that AI cannot do in the legal field, and that is specifically negotiating deals or litigating in court. So there's a lot of stuff that's not going to be impacted by AI for the foreseeable future. And what are those kind of things? Those are the kind of things that need the human touch. And we've talked about this quite a bit. But this historic news from NASA and SpaceX brings this point home very nicely. And again, this is not something AI could have possibly done. And it's not something that AI can do in the foreseeable future, is analyze all this data on the spacecraft from hundreds and thousands of different tests with thousands of different data points. Because an AI would be just too complicated to program right now for that. So, good news for human beings. AI will be a gradual process. It will not be a sudden process. It will be a sudden process in a very narrow field, but in the broader society, it will be a very gradual process. And we've talked about some of the things that are most at risk, right? That are way down the road in development. One of those is self-driving trucks. So if you're a truck driver or you're thinking about being a truck driver, let's help you think about a different path. And coming very soon, I'm going to have resources to help you with this kind of question. What can I do if what I do is threatened by automation. I will be helping you and giving you resources, and that will happen very soon. But in the meantime, there are many, many things that cannot be. So let's take this news, historic news again, from NASA and SpaceX. Well, there's many, many, many things that you can do potentially for a career. Of course, if you're an engineer, you could work at SpaceX on their rockets, or you could work at NASA on all of their activities, pick one of their fields. They work in many, many different fields, but you could pick one of those and work at NASA. But I wanted to be clear about one thing. There's a lot of people that work at NASA that are not engineers. There's a lot of people that work at SpaceX that are not engineers. Let's take NASA, for example. There's a whole slew of people that live in Florida and help run the Kennedy Space Center, which is becoming a true commercial multi-user spaceplex. What does that mean? Well, Kennedy Space Center was always government owned and run, but it's now been opened up to commercial space vehicles, mostly launching satellites and stuff like that, right? But now humans. And that will continue with the completion of the development of the Boeing Crew module. But there's a lot of people that work at Johnson that have nothing to do with engineering. They're just, some of them probably didn't even go to college, right? They do maintenance work. They do janitorial work. They serve food. They keep supplies moving. There's a million different things. The same is true for the Space Force at Cape Canaveral, right next to it. And of course, there's Vandenberg, which is owned by the Space Force in California, that also has many people, not engineers, working there. So if you got to be creative, right? If you're thinking about what do I really want to do for a career, you can do something new at any time if you're two things, creative and willing to learn. So for example, computers were around. I've worked in computer hardware and software for over 20 years now. But when I first started, nobody was talking about AI. This is all much more recent. I've told you that really AI didn't explode outside of university campuses until the invention of the first working neural net, which was in 2012, but it really wasn't commercialized, if you will, until 2015, 5 years ago. So that willingness to learn new things, stay up to date is very important. And the main reason why, we've also talked about that exponential change is growing exponentially faster. So it's critical that you're willing to learn for the rest of your life. And this isn't necessarily school stuff. Let's say you didn't do well in school. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. You can learn on YouTube how to do very, very practical things. Electrician work, plumbing work. Then you can apprentice and get a job, a very high-paying job as an electrician or plumber if you don't even go to college. So again, creativity and the willingness to learn are important. But in order to support my audience, I will be in the near future sharing resources with you to help you figure out what career path you want or change career paths if your career path is threatened. One of my subscribers who I've interacted with is a truck driver who is interested in AI and learning to program, and I gave him some ideas. So this is going to be a core element of what we're doing going forward at the AI Guide. And there's a bunch of changes coming for us to enhance our reach and enhance the value that we're giving to our audience. So I hope that you'll stick around and keep learning and learn new job opportunities and learn new resources and be ready and prepared for this rapidly changing world. So thank you so much, and I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye.